this show, the podcast on podcasting, is doing great because we're ranking in multiple different countries, top 20, top 10, top 100, top 3,000 podcasts out of 2.7 million.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up? Welcome to the podcast on podcasting. If you're new to the show, please feel free to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss an episode. Our goal is to help you be a better podcaster. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about one question that I get a lot, and I see a lot too. Like when I'm on like Facebook groups and things like that, I see this question a lot, and people are like, well, hey, what's a good number of downloads? What's a good like audience size? Well, I will share with you just that the top 1% of podcasts generally have over 3,000 downloads per episode. The top 10% of podcasts generally have about 300 downloads per episode. What's interesting, and it's almost like misleading, is that the bottom 90%, like if you're not in the top 10%, you almost have no listeners. This first threshold is around 300 downloads per episode. But that makes you feel like, hey, I'm doing so awesome. I'm in the top 10%. But the top 10% doesn't get very much traction. If you've ever heard of the Pareto principle, basically they say it's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the people make 80% of the money. The top 1% makes just as much as like half of the world combined, right? The top 1% is really those high income earners. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Once you hit the top 10%, you're finally doing something, but you still only have like 300 downloads per episode. When you get to like the top 1%, you usually have at least 3,000 downloads per episode. And what's interesting is, like, for example, I'll just mention Joe Rogan, even though I don't mention him a lot on this podcast. Like his episode has like 7 million downloads per episode, which is way higher than 3,000. So if your question is, and I'll say the bottom 90%, for the most part, they all have less than 100 downloads per episode. So if you've got 100 or less, your podcast is not doing well. Yes, there is an argument to be made that, hey, Adam, I'm speaking to 100 people that want to hear me every single day. Well, that's beneficial. I love that. But if you're not at least in the top 10% where you're getting at least 300 downloads per episode, then you're doing pretty bad. If you are above 300, you're doing pretty good. That's the first threshold. The second threshold is the top 1%, which is about 3,000 downloads per episode. And the next one is where you're fractions of top 1%. For example, and just to brag, if I can brag, this podcast episode is easily in the top 1%. We have way more than 3,000 downloads per episode. We rank on all of the different Apple and iTunes and Stitcher, and we rank on, what is it called? Like Podkite and Chartable, and just anywhere that has rankings. This show, the podcast on podcasting, is doing great because we're ranking in multiple different countries, top 20, top 10, top 100, top 3,000 podcasts out of 2.7 million, right? So top 3,000 in some categories as well, top 6,000 in some other categories. And we're the number one podcast on podcasting. So we're doing very, very, very well. And we have a lot of clients. If I can brag about our clients, they are doing very, very, very well. We have most of our clients are getting at least 12,000 downloads per month, which adds up to be about 3,000 downloads per episode. So not only are they in the top 1% based on their ratings and reviews, not only are they in the top 1% based on the content, not only are they in the top 1% based on the amount of downloads, but actually they're getting ranked too on like Podkite and Chartable and some of these other platforms. And the reason why they're doing this is because they took matters into their own hands. Some of them had us do it. Some of them did it themselves, but they took matters into their own hands. They took control of their podcast to be able to get their podcast in front of more people. So I want you to take a page out of my book and some of our clients' books and basically take control of some of the marketing, because once you hit the top 1%, once you're in that 3,000-ish downloads per episode, you have a better chance of getting in front of a lot more people so that you can be found even without your marketing efforts. And all I mean by this is you got to kind of blitz it in the beginning, and then you can kind of let the platforms help you grow. It's not that I want you to stop marketing. I want you to always market. I want you to always be working and growing. But it's interesting. Once you hit that top 1%, it starts to spike. And the Pareto principle really takes off. And you get in the top 0.5%, like a lot of our clients. Now you're in the top 0.5%. And instead of just doubling the listeners from 3,000 to 6,000, for example, now you're getting 10,000, 13,000, 20,000 because it's an exponential curve. It's a bell curve. Every time you move a little to the right, you move way to the vertical up. I always tell my kids it's elevated. We live in Colorado. And so we're on the playground and the kids are like, "Hey, Dad, look how high I am." And I'm like, "We're in Colorado. You're not allowed to say that you're high. Let's say we're elevated." And I want your podcast to be elevated. I want your podcast to be in front of more people. And so I want you to consider, what is a good podcast audience size? The answer is 300 is the minimum. If you have anything less than 300, you're probably not doing good. The next threshold is top 1%, which is about 3,000 downloads per episode. Take that, run with it, do what you can to grow your podcast audience. And if Grow Your Show can help you, reach out to me, schedule a call, and let's do a free discovery call where we talk about growing your audience. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode. 2 quick things before you go. Number 1, if you are looking to upgrade like your podcast equipment or just get your very first affordable microphone, then go to growyourshow.com/PDF. That link's in the show notes. Go ahead and scroll down. On that PDF is 100% equipment for your podcasting studio that I've personally vetted. My team has vetted this. We know that it works. We know that it's affordable, and we don't want you paying more for your podcasting equipment. So again, if you're looking to upgrade your equipment or get your very first inexpensive microphone that works great, that's where you go. And then number 2 is got a free course, A to Z, on everything you need to know about podcasting. And you don't have to go anywhere but the podcast in order to access it. You don't have to even give me an email address to access it. It is just the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So what you'll do is you'll scroll down a bit. You'll click on the all episodes and scroll down because we're hundreds of episodes in. And you'll see that episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a free course from A to Z on launching a top podcast. Take advantage of those 2 things. I'll see you on the next episode.